Hello, my friends. How are you doing? Today, I have a really awesome surprise for you. You can watch me do a photo shoot and edit the picture from start to finish. Both of them, of course, in time lapse, but the video is filled with secret sauce about all these steps that I'm doing. The reason why I'm doing this video is because a while back, I ordered studio backdrops from a company called D Backdrop. And they are a company from China. They have a lot of variety, but I was a little bit like, I'm not sure if that's going to be good quality. But once they arrived, I was really happy with the digital backgrounds and the quality and the print. I'm not affiliated with them, but as you know, I only ever do reviews if I am really convinced of the quality of the product. So let's get started. My name is Olivio, I'm a professional designer. This time we're gonna do some amazing photo stuff. Hit that subscribe button, this will improve your photo editing quality. Let's do this. Here we are in my room with model Claudia, and as always it was a ton of fun to work with her. And you might wonder, why is this a different background than I use in the photo I'm editing? Well, I forgot to record the rose background photo shoot. This is also the first time I'm using these studio backgrounds, and I have to say they are a ton of fun to use. They are very easy to use, and also they are very affordable, and a good mix between being on an actual location and using a complete digital background. Now, if you're on an actual location, of course, you have a lot more choices. You can change perspective, you can change location, there's different lights of day, stuff like that. But you have to have that location, you have to go to that location, you maybe have to rent that location. So there's a lot more time and money involved in that. And of course, with this kind of studio backdrop, you just put it up there. You have to iron it a little bit so it's not wrinkly, but other than that, you could go to any kind of location within of minutes and, for example, do a shooting on different locations with no stress in one afternoon. So that's pretty amazing. The other interesting thing is that when you work with a completely digital background, you have to remove everything around the model and make these complex hair selections, all these kind of things. So that can be very hard. And also you have ambient light. For example, if you use a green screen, you might have a green shimmer on the model. So that's also not as easy to do. Here with these backgrounds, the huge benefit is that they are physically with you in the same room. And this means everything that applies to the model also applies to the background, which means, for example, the lens you're using, the settings on your camera, the depth of field, the ISO resolution, basically the ISO grain that you have in your picture applies to the model and to the background. So this makes it a lot more real, it feels different, and you have great results with the really interesting picture backgrounds that are very quick to change. So now we come to editing the picture. You can see here I'm doing a frequency separation. What you can't see here is that I have started in Photolab, where I did some basic adjustments. It has very good raw processing, and then I applied Viveza, which is great for fixing different light situations, structure, contrast in the picture to prepare it. And then here I've done a frequency separation to paint in skin tones. As you can see here, I'm removing some of the highlight. If you see these brighter dots that I'm removing right here, this is where I made a little mistake. I fixed the skin problems, little like, I don't know, skin irritation, stuff like that, little hairs and stuff like that, before I did the skin color adjustment, removing the highlight. So that wasn't good, so I did that step again. In that step here, you can see I'm brightening up the teeth and the eyes. So the first step is where I brighten them up, and then I do a second step where I am actually adjusting with an HSL layer the colors, because sometimes the teeth can be a little bit yellow or the eyes can be a little bit red in the white, so you want to either remove that, but not completely, just make it a little bit less intense. Here you can see that I copy parts of the hair, I bend it with warp and also with liquify, and then I put a darker layer in between that I reduce in opacity so I can see where I have to erase the borders to make it really soft. And then I copy the hair, and this is to get like this nice brushed hair and not have all these strains in the hair. By the way, let me know in the comments if you want me to do a full online course on how I, for example, edit this picture or another picture, like portrait editing course from start to finish. That might be interesting, where I also explain more in detail why I do different steps, stuff like that. The whole process, I think, was maybe 2.5 hours to edit everything. Sometimes it's a little bit of a puzzle, a creative puzzle, to figure out what you want to do, how much you want to edit, how much you want to change, stuff like that. You can still see that I'm adjusting the hair. Here what I'm doing is that I'm actually using the smudge finger to just smudge the structure of the hair a bit to make it even softer and even straighter. This next step here, I'm using Liquify to puff up the, how can I say, the arm, the clothing on the arm. I'm not sure about the right word here, but you know what I mean. I'm puffing that up a little bit. And there's a little trick. I copy the picture beforehand, and then I can erase the parts that show the background, because the background shouldn't be different, right? So you want to puff up the arm and then afterwards erase the parts where the background has also been moved, so the background is still straight. Here I'm fixing the little skin part under the chin, so everything looks nice. You can see here I'm comparing the before and after for the hair. Do a little save, and then of course next part we are going to look at the lips, giving it a different, nicer color. And I decided to make a mask. Instead of using just one adjustment, I'm using multiple adjustments to get the saturation, the brightness, and the color adjustments. And now I'm doing the same thing with the eyes, where I also adjust the colors. Then I also apply a recolor layer, so to make the eyes brighter, give a more contrast, and also make them a little bit of this smoky blue color. Not completely blue, just a hint of blue. Here I'm putting a little bit of depth of field on that. I think I'll remove that later on. A little bit of experimenting with my overlays early on, just to get a better feel of what I want to do in the video, or not in the video, in the editing, right? So I'm just playing around with different ideas at that moment, but then I decide to go to do a different approach. At that moment, I also decided, well, first of all, I make a second copy of the file where I remove all of the other layers. So you can see that I have one layer that is just the last state, and this saves a lot of memory for working, like, what is it called, RAM on your computer, so everything is faster again. And at this point, as you can see me, I am removing the tattoos from the arm. So I'm trying a method where I paint over that with frequency separation. I wasn't happy with that, so I closed the file, opened it again, and now I'm doing it just with the in-paint brush to get a nicer texture, and applying the in-paint brush just a ton on these different areas. As you can see, works pretty nicely. Here I'm using, I think, the stamp brush to adjust that. And now we are in Nik Collection, where I do adjustments for glamour glow, for different light situations, color situations. I apply a vignette, as you can see here. I like the vignette a lot better in Nik Collection, so this is why I do that. So color effects is from Nik Collection, by the way, and do some other adjustments. I add some grain also, like analog film grain. You can see me here, I'm zooming in, and it's a little bit too much, so I make it softer, and then I also reduce the opacity, so there is just a tiny hint of analog grain in the picture. Yeah, here I'm saving the preset. And that's mostly it. Now I'm doing some color adjustment. I'm playing around with my Mythical Gradient overlays to just give it a little bit of another touch. And then last but not least, I'm doing also some dodge and burn in multiple layers, by the way. The way I'm doing this also is that I'm using a very big brush, so I have a very soft, big edge of my shadows, and then I'm using the eraser to erase the parts where I don't want to have this darkening of the shadows. And this is also something Dodge and Burn is really great to shape the surface a little bit, to make it more round, give it more volume, especially in the hair, but sometimes also in the face. And yeah, also you can see up here, I'm brightening up a little bit the hair on the, on the forehead, because she's wearing a wig. I'm fixing some parts of the hair again. So, you know, I'm always going very much into detail, and then I see something and something else. And at this point, I'm still not happy. There's a ton more things that I could do, but I said, okay, that's enough. You have to at some point say, okay, let's finish this. You can do better at the next work, right? Don't obsess over just one work. Get your projects finished, even if you know there is still some mistakes there, and then get better next time, right? It's always a process of growing. Here you can see me try to fix that part. I tried the different methods with the stamp and stuff like that. I wasn't completely happy how that looked, because it kind of, we have a little dent here where the eyes are of the skull structure of our face, and if I iron that out, the face doesn't look good. And we know faces so well because we see them every day, that these small things just stand out to us. So I instead decided to just push the hair a little bit more into the face so that part is covered, and at the same time it doesn't change the bone structure.